All right. Hi, everyone. So my name is Sly, co-founder and CEO at Botpress. So first, I'd like to give you a very warm thank you for joining the webinar today and for your interest and trust into Botpress. It's great to see so many of you joining us today, especially during the summer. To have so many of you here means a lot. So yeah, today is a very special day for us. You know, the last couple months have been crazy. 6 months ago, we released Botpress 11, which was a huge step ahead for our product. We received thousands of feedback, hundreds of thousands of downloads. So we grew the community a lot. So we listened to you and to our customers. And our engineering team worked super hard to deliver what I'm going to show you today. So the agenda. So we are going to do a small introduction to you that don't know what Botpress is, and then we're going to highlight what's new in Botpress 12. So I'm not gonna spend many time showing you what Botpress is. I'm just going to highlight what's new in Botpress 12. We already have a very complete YouTube channel that you can watch if you're interested in knowing what Botpress is and what the different features are. So today we're just going to focus on what's new. And then we're going to do a live demo. We'll speak a bit about the roadmap, where we are heading next, and then we'll have a period for questions. And so the slides will be available after the webinar. And we will send over by email the recording of this webinar. If you have any questions, don't hesitate. Ask them right now. I think there's a tool to ask. It's called Q&A. Just ask your questions there. We have moderators in the room. They will hopefully answer your question. And at the end, there will be a 15-minute period where I can go over the most interesting questions and answer them for you. So what is Botpress? So Botpress really quickly is an end-to-end chatbot platform. So it's meant to be a tool that does everything for you. Conversational AI and conversational interfaces is something extremely hard to do. So far we haven't seen very complex and very, impressive chatbots. And the reason why this is the case is because the tooling, in all honesty, the tooling still have a long way to go. It's very complex, to know about natural language understanding, to be a programmer, to design conversational interfaces. There's a lot of skill required, and the AI is just a bit overwhelming sometimes. And so our goal with Botpress is to build a single tool that you can use to build very quickly chatbot that for your enterprise. And we wanted to focus for customers that have this requirement of being fully on-prem. So there's already tools like Dialogflow and Microsoft Lewis that allow you to do NLU, but the problem with those tools is that all the data stream into their platform, and so you don't have, as an organization, you don't have the complete control over your data, and you're always kind of dependent on those services. And so Botpress is a fully on-prem. It runs on your machine. It's open source. It's the leading open source project. In fact, we have over 7,000 stars in GitHub and many hundred contributors. And we want to make it as straightforward and as easy for you to build those chatbots. And so we have a big focus on security, speed of innovation, and on user experience. Everything I'm going to show you today runs fully on my machine. It never, ever hits the cloud. So just keep that in mind. So what's new in Botpress 12? So we, from the feedback we received from Botpress 11, we wanted to focus on three major things that really resonated with us, which is developer experience. So we are developers ourselves, and we love, using tools that just work. And so this was our top priority with Botpress 12, is making the developer experience better. The second thing is that we completely re-engineered the NLU engine. NLU is a very big part of building conversational AI, and to be in the game and really to build the best tool, I think we are in this constant need to push the innovation on this side. So we're never going to be fully finished with the NLU. This is an ongoing project. I think we made it an order of magnitude better. We still have a long way to go, but I think that in the end, you'll be very impressed with what we came up with. And the post-deployment tool. So post-deployment tool, this is kind of a big point, which is when you develop your bot and you push them to production, how can you take this forward, and how can you edit those bots? And so we'll see how we make that better. And so without further ado, we'll just jump straight into the live demo. So I'll show you all the features one by one. And I would like to start with the developer experience. And the first thing that we did is that we completely rewrite the web chat. In Botpress 11, we introduced what we call the emulator. And it's been super helpful for developers because you could really see what Botpress received from the user, how it processed it, and what Botpress understood and what he decided to respond, right? And today we're doubling down on this approach by combining the emulator and the native Botpress web chat. So here, as you can see, I'm running a local version of Botpress. So this is a Botpress 12, and it's running the new emulator. So as usual, the emulator is located here, but the cool new thing is that it's now the same thing as the web chat. So it's using exactly the same technology. So what's nice about this is that what you see here, you know for a fact that this is what the user will see as well. So by debugging the conversation, you're not only debugging what Botpress understands, but you're also seeing exactly what the user will see. So if I type hello here, you have the normal conversation from the web chat, and you also have the debugger right on the side. So you know, and we highlight to you the summary, so the most important decisions and information that Botpress extracted from the user intent. And so you can see the dialog manager decision is here, the suggestions that were pushed by the modules, the understanding of the user intention also shows up here. And we'll also have the usual raw JSON expression that we used to have in Botpress 11 is still available here. So, you can, this bot is the normal small talk bot, but we edited the bot a little bit to include two new intentions. So this is the flight booking, the traditional flight booking example that we have on our documentation. We included this one here. And so if I type, book flight to Paris, you can see how the emulator, acts and in displaying, the understanding of the user intent. The other thing that we change is the code editor. So in Botpress 11, we introduced it very briefly in the last 2 weeks. We released it as an experimental feature, and we worked on making this now generally available. So we completely rewrite this module. So this is a really cool feature that allow you to edit the code of your bot straight into the Botpress Studio. And so you don't need to have a separate local environment with Visual Studio Code or Sublime. Now you can just run Botpress and edit your code directly from the UI. And so you have, as you know, you have the actions, and now what's new is you have also the hooks, and you have the bot configurations as well. And so you can edit the bot configuration straight from here. The hooks also. And you can also create new actions. So if I hit the plus button here, you can create a new action for this bot. And so you give it a name, and then you'll end up with a template like this where you can type your action. Those actions are made available live into your flow so that you can go in your flow editor, add an action, and you'll see that action showing up here. So this is hot reloading. What's also really nice by using the Botpress editor is that you have the Botpress SDK, the Botpress Developer SDK, typing straight into the user interface. And so you don't need to open the documentation, the Botpress documentation, because you have all the SDK references straight into the UI. And so this gives you the same user experience that you would have on your local ID. So it's really nice. One thing that you can also do is create new hooks. And when you hit the plus button, you can see all the different hooks available for you. So one thing that was very confusing for your Botpress users was that you didn't know what hooks were available, and what they would do. And so now, if you want to create a hook, you just press the plus button, and you'll have a template for those hooks. And so if you, for example, if you want to create a new after bot mount hook, you just press this. You give it a name, and then you'll have a template, an example of this. Yeah, so you can also enable those hooks and disable them straight from the UI. So if you right-click on those elements, you can enable them and disable them. I'm not going to do that. And so one thing when you're editing and you're creating actions is that often you will expose variables to your flows. So if I type here temp.username equals Celine, and I save this, this variable will be now available from the content editor. When you type it's not showing up here, but so one thing that one big issue that developers had before was that when creating content elements and writing actions, you didn't really know what you could type in the user in the text fields. And now Botpress will show you a plus sign on all the text input that support templating. And so here, if you click the plus sign, Botpress will tell you in this context what is available what variables are available to type into this message. And so you have access to the event, NLU, intent, username. And again, if you type the braces, the curly braces like this, you'll also have access to the IntelliSense and with autocompletion. So the goal here is really to make the user experience better, and those fields are available in the CMS. They are also available inside the actions themselves. So if you have an action with that requires some parameters, then sometimes you want to enter a parameter that is referring to a variable, and so you can do that straight from here. All right. Another big issue that we identified when running Botpress in production is that you don't quite have the same developer experience that you have on your local machine. Especially, on your local machine, you have the terminal open. You can see all the logs, and you can, very quickly identify problems and debug your chatbots. And so today we're introducing the real-time logs, and they are streamed in real time to the Botpress Studio interface. So this is exactly the same experience that you would have on your local machine, except that this is also available in production or the staging environments. So as I type to the chatbot, the logs generated from the bot will show up here in real time. Sometimes you have deeper problems that you want to debug. You're not quite sure what's happening. So what you could do to diagnose further is when you go back to the admin panel, you have a configured debug option. This option is available to administrator of the cluster only, and what this allows you to do is to customize the information that will be logged to the console. So now I enabled the hooks, and I should see all the hooks that are executed straight into the user interface in real time. So if I speak to the bot again, you can see all the logs flowing right here. And really, we extract as much information as we can. And this is not really adding any bottleneck to the performance, because this is meant as a debug. So if you don't enable this feature, this won't impact the performance of Botpress in production. We also added a download button here. So if you hit that, you'll have an export of the logs available, so you can share it with your developers. You can also, of course, clear the history and close that panel. You can access the logs by clicking this button here. Now that's a lot of screens that we have, and so and I can feel, as a developer, I can feel the need for not using my mouse, and being efficient with the user interface. And so what we did is we added a bunch. In fact, we added a lot of keyboard shortcuts to do all these things and navigate the Botpress user interface. So for the logs, when you hover this button, you'll see it's Command plus J. So if you hit Command J, this will open the log. It will toggle it. Again, for the emulator, it's E. So if you press E, you can toggle the emulator like this. So we added a bunch of those shortcuts. For example, if I want to go to the intent editor, I can just type J for go, G for go, and then I for intent. And so I'm now in the intent editor. For the going back to the flow, I can hit G, F, and I'm back to the flows. And so all those shortcuts are documented, so have a look, and it's really help you being more productive. The next thing that I want to talk about is the new NLU engine. One of the major issue with NLU these days is to be able, in fact, we did pretty good progress in terms of detecting what the user intention is, given that you have enough utterances. But a problem that is still to be solved is detecting what we call the out of scope user intention. And so how do you detect that what the user says is something that is not quite understood yet by your bot? And this seems a bit counterintuitive, but it's because of the algorithms that most of the platforms use. They tend to overfit on specific intentions. And so we made this better in this version of Botpress. to detect those out-of-scope intents. And so now you'll see much more detection of the non-intention by Botpress. So when Botpress is not sure, he will tell you that. Like I said, we added a few intents to this bot to handle flights. And so we have a flight booking. So this intent allows you to book a flight, but it doesn't go beyond that. So if I say I missed my flight, help, Botpress will acknowledge that this is an intention that he can't really detect as of now. Prior to Botpress 12, what we would probably have done is overfit on the flight keyword and then, give you the flight booking intention. This is the behavior that you'll get on most platforms, and so we worked hard on detecting the out of scope. Another cool thing here is what we call the disambiguation. So when Botpress is not sure what you mean, he will tell you that the detection was a bit ambiguous, and so you can add some logic to your application to clarify what the user intention is. So in this bot, this is the regular small talk bot, and so we have an intent called I love you, and we also have an intent called would you marry me? And so if I say something ambiguous like I am in love with you and want to marry you, so this one should be confused because it's close to I love you, but it's also close to would you marry me. So I expect the NLU engine to be a bit confused here. And so, the intention that was detected, the main one was I love you, but you can see here we added a tag that says, hey, I'm a bit ambiguous about what you mean because 57% of me think that it's I love you, but I also think that it could be would you marry me? And so you can add some logic to your flows. It's up to you to handle or not those ambiguous edge cases. One major also improvement that we did to the NLU engine is that we made it entirely multi-link. And so let me show you how that works. If you go to your Botpress administration panel and go to the configuration of your bot, you now have a new tab called supported language. What this allows you to do is to add new languages to your bot just by picking them in the drop-down, and you also have to define what the default language of your bot is. And so if we see in action how that works, so this will, by the way, this will work for the understanding part, and it will also work for replying to the users. And how that works behind the scene, you see we have a small flag here. So the studio, whenever you edit your chatbot, you have to you have the choice of the language that you're currently editing to. It defaults to the default language of your bot, but you can switch seamlessly between the two languages. You can see as I do this, as I change language, you can see in real time the language of the content being changed in the user interface. For the Q&A and for the intents, what this will look like is like this. So all the intents, all the Q&As are the same, all the content elements are the same, but they will need to be translated. In this example, in English, we had the what is the weather Q&A, and in French, we forgot to translate this what is the weather intent. So if you click on it, it will tell you, hey, I'm missing translations, and so this will allow you to not forget to translate the Q&As. If you do not provide a translation for this intent, what Botpress will do is completely ignore this intention when training the NLU engine. In the flows, when you switch language and you have a missing translation for a message, it will show you missing translation from here. And when the bot tries to reply with a missing translation for that language, it will fall back to the default language. So if you don't provide anything, it will just, for example, in French, it will reply in English. As a content editor, you can go to the content panel here. And since I'm in French, I can see all the missing translation elements right from the user interface. And so it's very now straightforward to come up here, see what messages have been forgotten, and then by clicking like this, I can start from the English and then provide a custom French alternative. So the way this works behind the scene is that we introduced two new technologies. One is a machine learning-based tokenizer. One challenge with NLU, and what we're trying to do is that we're trying to be language agnostic. We're trying to make it, as easy as possible to add new languages and to add without adding a bunch of libraries. We just want to have a single executable. You double click on it and it just works. And so this is a big challenge for doing multi-language. You need tokenizers, you need syntactic parsers and linguistic tools. And so one tool that we introduced, which is a new paper by Google called Sentence Piece, we embedded this machine learning-based tokenizer into the product so that now you can really quickly train new languages and embed those languages into your chatbot. We pre-trained a few of those languages for you guys. So we crawled Wikipedia, and for now, I think, let me just check which languages are available. So we trained it for Arabic, Russian, Japanese, English, and French. There are more languages coming up, and they will show up here automatically. So how that works behind the scene is those language models have been trained on our side and hosted on our website. So what Botpress will do is fetch our website, see which models are available, and you can download new models just by clicking this button. Botpress will fetch the language model. It will load it into memory, and it will be available. And that's all you need to know to add new languages. A new feature that was introduced in Botpress 11, but quite late, I think it was Botpress 11.9, is the slot extraction and the slot filling skill. So I wanted to show you how that looks for people that haven't seen it yet. So we have the flight booking intent. Oops, I'm gonna go into English because we haven't translated in French. So we have the flight booking intention here, and we defined 3 slots. So the from, the to, and the flight type. The flight type is it a round trip or one-way, flight? From is an airport or a city. Again, the same thing for to. And so the slot fitting skill allow you to parse, extract those slots, and if there's any missing slot, Botpress will ask the user to provide the required slot to fulfill the intent. And so if I say I book a flight from Quebec to Paris, Botpress will say, I understood that you want to book a flight, 99.5% confidence on this. I extracted Paris as you know, as a city, it's Charles de Gaulle Airport. Quebec is YQB. I think that, you know, Quebec is the from city and Paris is the to. And they've been extracted this turn. But Botpress will tell you, do you want to make a one-way flight or is this a round trip? Because I didn't provide that in my phrase. How that works is that we introduced the slot fitting skill. So if you go to insert skill, slot, you'll see that interface that allow you to pick an intent, pick a slot, in this case from, to, and flight type. You can customize how the bot will ask to provide, you know, the intent, what to say when the slot is not found, and then you can also do some custom validation here. So I can say this is a round trip, and the bot will say thanks. Your round trip from YQB to CDJ. CDG have been booked, and you can see the round trip has been extracted this time. So a second example, I could just say book flight to Paris. Again, the flight type is missing. I could say round trip. And from where are you departing, because the from is missing, and I can say YQB, and it detects, you know, YQB to Charles de Gaulle. Another cool feature now is the understanding part of the NLU engine. So what we did is we included a cross-validation F1 scoring algorithm straight into the NLU engine. And whenever you train your language models, whenever you edit your you know, your Q&As or intents, Botpress will train behind the scene a confusion matrix, and it will display the NLU performance right inside the user interface, so that you can quickly see if the changes that you made it worse or made it better. So whenever you click this button, it will recompute the confusion matrix in real time and display the results in the user interface. This takes a bit because it splits the data set in 3 buckets, and it trains it 3 times and then does some cross-validation. Now it's completed. You can see the score is 86%. You can also get that result from the terminal. There's another interface coming up. It's not yet released, but this will allow you to very quickly visualize the understanding of the different intents and Q&As, and display the confusions between those intents. And so straight from the UI, you'll see that, you know, for example, the buy and the goodbye intent were confused a few times when doing the confusion tests. So this will be very handy to debug your understanding models. So now let's talk about the post-deployment tools. So we introduced in Botpress 11, and I will not demo this today because we're a bit short on time. But there's a new module called testing, and what this allows you to do is create, record conversation scenarios to make sure that those scenarios keep working when you make changes to your bot. And so you can think of it as exactly the same thing as unit tests, So whenever you have a completed scenario, your team can record the conversation. It will show up as a line like the unit test, and then when you click run all, it will execute all your scenarios and tell you whenever there's a scenario that's been broken by recent changes. There's also you probably saw that in the admin panel. The pipeline feature is also something new. What this allows you to do is to have different stages for your chatbot. So, for example, if I create a bot here and I called it Sly Dev, and I start from an empty bot template, it shows up here in the dev stage. And I'll say I make changes to it, and I'm now ready for that bot to be reviewed by our QA team. What I can do is click on the 3 dots, promote to next stage, and this bot will make a copy of itself, and it will have a distinct bot ID called Sly Staging. So behind the scene, Botpress changes the name, and then once it's been approved by the QA team, you can promote that chatbot to production by clicking again the same button, and now it goes from staging to production. The staging suffix has been removed, and now it's just called Sly. If I click on it, it's just the regular, Botpress Studio. What you can do to change the behavior of changing, stages and going through the different approval steps that your team has internally, you can go to the code editor, and there's a hook called onStageRequest. And what this hook does is it allows you to change the behavior of what really happens behind the scene when you move from one stage to another. So you can do really complex things. For example, you could push the code to GitHub, and then when someone approves your pull request, you can change the stage to production. You can really customize the behavior as you wish. A feature that we introduced in Botpress 11 is the ability to export your chatbot. So just by clicking on a bot and export, this will give you a tarball extraction of your bot. And a cool new feature is that you can now import those bots that's been exported. And so what this allows you to do is collaborate much better between the different team members. You can import very easily a bot that your teammate has done. You can also roll back your bots by using this feature. Speaking of rollbacks, this is now something built in Botpress. Whenever you make changes to your bot, it will record those changes as a revision, and you'll be able right from this menu to revert to a previous version of this bot. Say that someone has pushed a change that broke. You can revert in production without doing anything. And speaking of migrations, one major problem with developing so fast and iterating so fast on the technology has been for our clients to migrate from one version of Botpress to the other. And now today we're super excited about this because we announced that it's kind of the end of those big migrations, from one major version to the other. We are reducing the effort required to change from one version to the other, and so in Botpress 13 and in the further versions of Botpress, migrations will be seamless, and so you'll experience this when switching from Botpress 11 to 12. Botpress will prompt you with the steps required to move from 11 to 12, and it will help you do that seamlessly. Whenever Botpress can, it will do those migrations automatically. When there's manual steps, it will prompt you to do those steps. And so what's coming next in Botpress? So we plan on adding more languages. We want to do further NLU optimizations. We want to make this better. We want to improve also the experience for non-technical users. We know that not everyone is a developer, an experienced developer. And so we want to make it as easy as possible for those non-technical people to come on Botpress and use it to edit the chatbot and even create new chatbots from scratch. The goal is really to enable those non-technical people. And post-deployment learning and improvements, one thing that's currently lacking in the product is the ability to detect what's been fading for the bot to understand and to answer the users. And so one thing that we'll be focusing much more in the next version is the ability to learn from the past conversations and improve the chatbot straight from the user interface. So that's pretty much it. That wraps the features that we wanted to show you today, and we'll now switch over to answering the questions. I'll just take a minute because I need to read the different questions, and I'll be back. Okay, so thanks for your questions. A lot of questions, hundreds of them. So I'll try to answer some of those. And so I see here integration with WhatsApp for Business. So JD answered, integration for WhatsApp for Business will be coming soon. We have a client already running the WhatsApp bot, and so we'll be soon open sourcing the WhatsApp channel. How do we extend the pipeline with custom modules? For now, we've only found how to do it for entities, but not for intents. So to extend the pipeline feature, I displayed a few hooks. So there's two hooks that you can use to customize the pipeline feature. This will allow you to hook the behavior of when you switch from one stage to another. There's also, for example, if you want to hook with external behaviors such as a pull request has been merged on GitHub, what you can do in Botpress is expose a webhook, and so you can listen for those webhook events. There's also some SDK methods that you can use to change a bot programmatically from one stage to another and edit the content from there. Which one? Yeah, so I'm attending the webinar from my phone. Will replay be available? Yes, so there will be a YouTube video link, and we will also send a link by email to everyone that attended this webinar. The supported languages, French and English. So on my computer, I'm running a local version of the language server. In fact, let me show you how that looks. It's when you run Botpress, you can run it with the lang argument. When you do that, it will host a language server on your computer. On my computer, because of limited resources, I only hosted French and English. Each model in 300 dimensions take approximately 3 gigs of RAM, and so I only run those two for the demo to make sure that everything runs smoothly. Of course, you're free to host as many languages as you want. We also have public language servers that we host for convenience. Those servers run on on our infrastructure, and it's by default when you run Botpress, Botpress will try to connect to those language servers. You can switch very seamlessly to your own language servers to remain fully on-prem. We'll be also adding more languages in the coming weeks, and we will open source all the tools that we used to train those language models, and we will also welcome any contribution from you. In order to pass the translations to a translation office, is there a way to export all the default language inputs and then import them? Yes. So all the bot content is stored in JSON files in Botpress. And so what this allows you to do is take those JSON files. You can do some transformation in it. If you want to transform it to CSV, for example, you can ask your translation office to translate the JSON files directly. And then when they are done, you simply drag and drop that JSON file back into Botpress, and it will work. GDPR is a huge topic in our company. Are there any plans for a module that supports basic use cases like getting user information and deleting user information from the database? Yeah, absolutely. So in fact, this is already built into Botpress. I don't have the documentation page handy right now, but if you look in the documentation and you type user attributes, there is all the features that you need to automatically remove after a certain period of time the user information. Also, when you do entities extraction, you have the choice of marking an entity as being sensitive. So when you create an entity, you'll have here a sensitive button. So for example, if you're extracting a social security number or you're extracting credit card numbers, you don't want them to show up in your database. You don't want to save those information. So you can click sensitive, and those information will be stripped from any log, all the database saving, and so it will remain highly sensitive. Can you tell us if a channel web refactor has been planned on Botpress 12? Yeah, so the Botpress channel web has been completely rewritten, and in fact, it's so flexible now that the entire emulator is built entirely using 100% using the Botpress webchat SDK. And so there's nothing that we did to really, to make it work better in Botpress. Everything displayed in the simulator is using the webchat SDK. And so it's very flexible. You can customize the styling. You can create your own components. You can change entirely how the webchat displays. A question is, what is the result of the poll? The most, yeah, let me show you the results. Okay, I'm not able to take a screenshot, but so the most wanted channel is WhatsApp, 56%. Microsoft Teams, 34%, followed by Slack, 8%, and then RCS, 1%. Nobody voted for Cisco WebEx, which is sad. All right, and finally, oh, another one. We're currently using 11.6.1. Do we need a license to upgrade to this version? The answer is yes. Your license will still be valid for version 12. So the license will keep working. So if it's an online license, if it's an offline license, please reach out to our team, and we will give you a free upgrade to 12. Yeah. Can we contribute to the development of the Hebrew language processing? Absolutely. So what we have, and we will open source it very soon, is we have what we call the BPDS, the Botpress datasets, and we will be open sourcing this. It's an Excel spreadsheet using Google Sheet, and you'll be able to train and provide utterances for new languages straight into that Excel spreadsheet. That's really all that's required to train a new language. Behind the scene, our team will, fetch Wikipedia in Hebrew. We will, do all the heavy lifting. But what we need from the community is to translate the BPDS, which is used to benchmark the NLU and making sure that everything works in that language. Exporting bots, can they be hosted in Azure using their chatbot services? You can. Botpress runs on-prem, and really it runs on any platform, including Docker. So you can run Botpress anywhere. But using the chatbot services, you could if you create a custom module for it. But there's really no need to do that in Botpress because we support all the cognitive services that Microsoft provide. We also have built-in support for it, and you don't have to pay a dime to use those services. And so we don't have a built-in integration with LUI. Any updates in the analytics module? Unfortunately not. So this module hasn't changed in 12. Can I use an external API for analytics instead of the supported module? Yeah, absolutely. So you can create an action, you can create a module, you can create a hook. There's many ways you can go about it. The simplest one is to create a hook, and you can stream any event that you want to, say, Google Analytics or Google Chat Flow. Yeah, this is very straightforward. Will you automatically generate intense utterances based on a first input? I'm not sure I understand the question correctly, but I think you're referring to the natural language generation. This is something that we intend on working in the future. It's not there's nothing new with regards to NLG in Botpress 12, but stay tuned in the next version. We have some plans. How do we scale the bot to handle million chat users? Yeah, so Botpress really scales horizontally, so you can spin new nodes of Botpress. All you need to do is connect Botpress to Redis. So if you have, for example, 10 Botpress nodes, the way that they will communicate together is via a Redis instance. And you also want to use Postgres as the database so that every node is looking at the same data. And yeah, doing that will allow you to scale to million chat users. In fact, our largest deployment has a couple million users, and we benchmarked Botpress to be able to handle thousands of messages seamlessly. And the last question that I will be answering, but not the least, is when is Botpress 12 going to be available? I think the best way to answer this question is to ask our bot here. When is Botpress 12 available? Yeah, and yeah, so Botpress 12 tells us that Botpress 12 is available right now. So our team acknowledged that they have published and pushed the new version of Botpress, and so it's available right now for everyone. It's generally available. So just go on our website on the download page, pick your platform, and it will be available. Also, it's available on Docker Hub. The tag is 1200. It's also going to be merged in the master branch on GitHub. So that's all for today. Thanks for attending the seminar. And for our enterprise clients that want to migrate to Botpress 12, please reach out to our team. We want to be here for you. We want to make the transition to 12 seamlessly, and so just drop us a call, and we will get you on board with Botpress 12. We're excited to see what you build next, and we'll see you soon. Thanks.